This episode is brought to you by Timely Presence. Grief doesn't end at the graveside, but most support does. Timely Presence helps families and friends continue showing up throughout the first year of loss with personalized remembrance gifts, timed to the days that tend to hurt most. The first holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, and quiet milestones when grief can feel especially heavy. Because the people we love deserve to be remembered beyond the funeral. And the people grieving deserve to feel supported long after the first wave of care has faded. Visit thetimelypresence.com to learn more. Welcome to Highlight Your Healing. I'm your host, Shannon Roan. Today's guest is someone whose life is a powerful testament to resilience, faith, and the possibility of transformation. Her journey has included childhood abandonment, addiction, abuse, unimaginable loss, and the heartbreaking death of her son to suicide. Yet through every chapter, she has continued choosing hope, serving others, and using her experiences to create pathways of healing for her community. She is the founder of Desire to Inspire Community Outreach, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering individuals to overcome life's challenges. Following the loss of her son, she also established a new Dawn bereavement resource network to support parents navigating child loss while advocating for systematic changes through what she hopes will become Shadon's law. Today's conversation is about what healing can look like after life changes you forever. It's about faith, resilience, advocacy, self-love, and discovering purpose even after unimaginable loss. Olivia, welcome to Highlight Your Healing.
Thank you, Shannon.
So before we get into today's conversation, I would just love for you to start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about who you are and then walking us through your journey.
My name is Olivia Fields, and I have 9 children, 6 living. And as you said, I've come through a lot. I was born in upstate New York. My mom went to Cornell University there, and she ended up meeting my stepfather in Cornell when I was 2. My father wasn't around, and they relocated to Minneapolis. I was raised as Olivia Cook, John Cook's daughter, and didn't know anything until they got a divorce when I was like around 11 or 12. That's when I found out that wasn't my father, and needless to say, I wanted to know who he was. At that time, after my mom and stepfather's divorce, my mother was trying to find herself. And at that time, I didn't understand the things that were going on in our life. I saw her dating, trying to date people. There was this one gentleman in particular that she was dating. I found out later on that my mom had been helping this man. He had bought a new home, helping him fix it up, and only to come and find out that he had married someone else and moved them in. That shook my mother into a place of, I don't even know, but what I do know, vulnerability is what I'm going to say, extreme vulnerability, because that's when she met the person she's with to this day. We just going to call him T. Okay. So, he introduced my mother to a cult called the Unification Church. And by that time, my mother had gotten herself together. She was going to college for child psychology, getting her master's degree. We were like upper middle class, me and my sister, who's 8 years younger than me. And we were doing pretty well off, and then here comes Mr. T. And everything changed. Today, I see that the things that she was trying to teach me were good, but at that time, as a 15-year-old child, being told that you can no longer attend public school, you can no longer eat meat, society is messed up, this is an unjust system. Again, all of those things were true, but at 15, I didn't understand it. All I saw was this man coming into our home, everything changing, my mother sleeping in the living room. There was all kind of other stuff going on in the household as well that just didn't sit right with my spirit. So I left. I went to what was familiar to me, which was, being out in the streets with my quote unquote friends. I do admit I was a little juvenile delinquent, going out there, fascinated by the street life that was glamorized on television. I always think about that song by Coolio, Too Much Television Watching Got Me Chasing Dreams. And I was actually fascinated by seeing the ladies going on dates with guys and getting new cars and things of that nature. But, they never showed the back end of that. They never
Right.
showed the addiction. They never showed the abuse, and with my mother going to school, we were left home a lot alone. So that's what I gravitated to. You could say I had very low self-esteem growing up. So I sought my comfort in men. At a very young age. By me going out, not wanting to be at home with my mother and the guy that she brought into the home, I ended up meeting an older man, very much older than me, like 30 years older, in a very toxic household. At that time, my mother told me that she was going to be moving on a Wednesday, and did I want to come with her? I told her yes, and called her on that Tuesday, and number was changed. She was gone. And the only other person that I had in the state of Minnesota to care for me was my stepfather, who was extremely strict, and I did not want rules at that time. So I decided to, try to, what they say, thug it out, in the streets, but it really got bad. It was a very toxic environment for a 15-year-old child, with an adult man who had a crack addiction, whose adult siblings had crack addictions and were pimps and prostitutes and just all kind of toxicity. But again, at that time, I didn't know how to reach my mother. And just for me, my stepfather was like jail. Sorry to see, but it was. I used to be the person where they say curiosity kills the cat. I always felt like I was invincible. That's not going to happen to me. And at the age of 15, I saw the person I was with smoking crack in the marijuana, lacing the joints. And I'm like, what is that? I want some. He's like, oh, you're not ready for this. But a few months later, I guess he felt like I was. And I tried it. At that time, it didn't really affect me. But the relationship began getting more abusive. He would lock me in the house without my clothes for days at a time. Whenever I would try to leave, he would do that. And so finally, one day after I've been there for about 6 months, he was like, oh, you want to leave? You want to leave? You can go. And I went to pack up my stuff and go for the front door. And he attacked me from behind, tried to run out the back door. He followed me and beat me down the basement stairs. And his brother had to pull him off me. And I ran and turned myself into juvenile probation because they were looking for me. So, I escaped that. Thank God. At the age of 15, ended up spending my 16th birthday in a very secure juvenile detention center in upstate Minnesota, where I actually learned a little bit about authority, learning new things, learned how to take pictures, learned how to ride a horse, learned how to shoot pool. Got my first pizza tattoo, but that didn't work too good. And my mom ended up finding me there. I did spend my 16th birthday there. But my mother ended up finding me in December of that year. The state of Minnesota's gift to me was a one-way ticket to Savannah with couldn't return the probation stipulations of you can't return until you're 21. So in essence, I got banned from the state of Minnesota at the age of 15 until I turned 21 and was sent down south to Savannah to live with my mother. Once I got down here, my family saw what I was trying to tell them in my early years about the man changing my mom and her behavior changing, the isolation that my sister endured. And my family didn't approve, and my mother ended up leaving with the person and my sister, only for a few months later them to find them. And my sister ended up going to live with her dad. He ended up getting custody of her and raising her. My father, I did find him later on. He was in Florida with his new wife, my stepmother, and her daughter. And instead of my father embracing me in love, he was like, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it was hard for me. I felt like Cinderella. I felt like the stepchild, with my stepmother and stepsister. So everything my dad told me not to do, I did. And ended up in Savannah. My dad couldn't keep me. I wasn't, obedient. I didn't want to hear anything he had to say. Ended up pregnant in Savannah. When I used to come down in the summer times, my aunties they were like my mom, my grandma's daughters. And they were in their early stages of addiction as well. And to this day, they are my heroes because I follow their steps, mainly my oldest auntie H. She showed me every step through my journey that I can do anything. And I'm
Yes.
so grateful for her.
Mhm.
We were all impacted by crack addictions. I started soon after them at the age of 17. I tried it again. I really kind of forgot about the time that I tried it in Minnesota. But again, me with that, oh, it's not going to do anything to me attitude did not make me invincible.
Right.
I got addicted at 17 after I had my daughter, my oldest daughter. My dad had to come and get her because it hit me hard and fast.
Mhm.
And my father ended up adopting my daughter when she was 2. I tried everything to beat my off and on 25-year crack addiction, from geographical relocations to rehabs to I'm only going to do it on the weekends to, well, maybe if I'm with this person, I'll get over, or this job. And through all of that, nothing stopped me from using drugs until I was ready. And it took me off and on 25 years. I had my first daughter at 17 in Savannah. 5 years later, I ended up pregnant with my now 33-year-old son in West Palm Beach, Florida. He was a crack baby. I actually literally went into labor while I was going from hotel to hotel, walking down the Broadway Strip in West Palm Beach, Florida. And it's a miracle that he's alive, that he's healthy, that he has my beautiful grandson to this day. I wasn't ready at that time. I thought I was. I went to a program. I didn't stay. I wasn't ready. I did try to get myself together. My grand aunt was a foster mother, so she agreed to take my son and care for him. And she did. Then 5 years later, I ended up getting
Mhm.
pregnant with my now 29, he'll be 29-year-old son. And actually, when he was 6 months old, that's when not my favorite auntie. Yeah, my favorite auntie. She ended up going to rehab herself, and she got clean when my son was 6 months old. So she'll be 29 years clean tomorrow.
Mhm.
So proud of my auntie. And she ended up getting off drugs. She went to rehab for like 6 months and then came home, moved my grandmother out of the projects, got a house built in Pooler, Georgia, one of the first houses before Pooler was even Pooler. And when I saw what my aunt was doing, the same aunt that was out in the streets with me every day
Mhm.
and every night for those decades, I knew that I could do it, but I still
Right.
wasn't ready yet. 5 years later, I ended up getting pregnant with that son, my 29-year-old, and I tried to raise him until he was 3, but my addiction again took over. So his grandparents, his father's parents, came and got him, and they raised him. And, I tried rehabs again and everything, going back home to dad, because of course my dad would always let me come back home and try to get myself together. And so when I went this final time, 23 years ago, I had met someone, because remember I told you I suffered from low self-esteem growing up and always gravitated towards men. So there was really no self-love for me there. I was very beautiful on the external, but my internal was hardcore. It
Mm.
was, whatever you do to me, I'm gonna do back to you, and I don't care about the consequences. I'll deal with those later. But that was my mentality. So um when I got pregnant with my 23-year-old daughter, I did stop using drugs, and I met someone, and I was so fascinated by that person that I wanted to move in and show them how good of a wife I could be. And my daddy said something to me. He said, if you leave, you're not coming back. And I'm like,
Mhm.
daddy, he don't mean that. And I left, and a few months later, the young man came home and said he was going back to his ex-fiance and I can keep the apartment. The bills were paid up. I didn't hear any of that, and it just really
Mhm.
exploded. And I called my father and asked him, could I come home? And my daddy told me no. That was
Mm.
the best thing my father could have ever done for me. And I told him up to his dying day, thank you, daddy. A lot of times in our life, we feel like the ones that we love, we see them hurting and going through situations in life, and we pick them up and we help them over and over and over again. But there has to come a time where we have to, as much as it hurts us, allow that person to hit rock bottom, is what they call it, so that they can either sink or swim, basically. And when at that time I was in West Palm Beach and I didn't have anywhere to go, my daughter was a few months old, and I called my family in Savannah, just let them know my dad won't let me come back home. I don't have anywhere to go. So they gathered up money and sent for me. And I caught a Greyhound bus with a newborn baby to Savannah and went and slept on my grandmama's couch for about 2 weeks. And I couldn't do that anymore. So I found a program, a shelter to go to, Hope House of Savannah. Even though I had been clean for some time and I was a little older at that time for their first house. So they allowed me to live in the transitional part, had a roommate and shared utilities and things of that nature. And I stayed in Hope House of Savannah for 2 years. It was a shelter home in Savannah for women with one child at that time. And I actually, when I got there, I began finding resources in Savannah. I would go and find the Savannah Care Center for one. They provide free an alternative to abortion. So whatever that looks like, whether it's adoption, helping you find a place, they gave free clothing, maternity items, baby items. And I just became really cool with the director at that time. And I would go back and tell the ladies, hey, you can go to Savannah Care Center and talk to Miss Gwen and get this. They'll help you with this. And I would just do that. So everybody started, my family, my aunts and them would start coming to me, hey, Olivia, we know somebody that needs this. Can you help them? Can I give them your number? And I just started doing it. And my mentor at that time, she goes, Olivia, you can start a nonprofit and make money doing this. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to make money. I just want to help people.
Right.
It was like, don't be no fool. It's going to take money to help people.
Yes.
But I say that to say that in 2009 is when Desire to Inspire was birthed in me. And I had no idea of the magnitude that it would be to this day. And that was in 2009. So in Savannah, once I left Hope House of Savannah, I had a few more times that, I thought that I could victoriously smoke crack, successfully smoke crack, unsuccessfully. I even was going to a day treatment. Monday through Friday from 9 to 12. At 12:01, I was still getting high for the first 30 days until one day in July of 2007, I was actually literally in the midst. I had someone over at my house with a bunch of drugs, and I told them they have to leave. I did not want to do that to myself anymore. And there were no more programs for me to run to. I said, I'm going to rehab in the morning. I'm going to confess and tell the people that I've been getting high for the past 30 days and I really need help. And I did. And I have back since. I had to use every tool that was given to me. The 12-step program, getting phone numbers. I actually have my journal for like the first year, the first days, like where it was really hard. But, I knew that all the excuses in the world that I could come up with to try to escape reality, because that's all it is. Any addiction is just escaping reality, whether it's drugs, sex, alcohol, workaholic. You're trying to not face something that's going on. They always say the drugs and alcohol or the addiction is only 5% of the problem. 95% of the problem is the problem. So when you learn how to deal with the problem, then that little 5% isn't going to matter. So I did that, I put the tools in the program to use, and it wasn't easy, but I did it, and ended up relocating to Atlanta, Georgia. After visiting here, Atlanta was the last place I ever wanted to live. I only came here to have fun on my birthday weeks. And one day my oldest daughter was like, hey, Ma, you should stay. I'm like, I don't know. I got to see what God say, because that's one thing I learned in my journey is all those times that I was out in the street. There were many, many nights that, I was out there and just crying out to God. But inside of my heart, I always knew that I wasn't going to die out there. I didn't know how, when, where I was going to come out of my addiction. I just knew in my spirit. And I did. So I did the steps. My daughter wanted me to come to Atlanta. I prayed about it
Mhm.
on my way home. I was working at a animal hospital at that time, and I said, I'll talk to the people when I get there. If God opens the doors, then I'll come through. So I've been praying all the way there, and talked to my supervisor when I got back. They had a position coming open in a couple months, right around the time for me to get all my housing and everything together and transferred. So I felt like that was the green light from God. So I took off running, and I
Wow.
started making plans, and Atlanta's a big place. So
Yes.
they kept saying, go to Gwinnett, go to Gwinnett. Gwinnett got the best schools. Gwinnett, Gwinnett, Gwinnett. So, I put in my little transfer to come to Gwinnett and looked at a house in Gwinnett. And at the final hour, I got a rejection letter to move to Gwinnett. And I'm like, wait a minute, God. I'm training this lady to take over my position. I know you told me to go because you made the path clear. What's going on? And the
Mhm.
spirit spoke to me clear as day, say, you didn't ask me where to go.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
So I had a couple more houses on my list in a couple of different counties. And I said, you know what? I'm going to call these lists. Whoever can assist me in this move, then I know it's from, and it ended up being DeKalb County. And
Mhm.
once I did that, that door opened up, and I made this little wish list of how I want my house to be. I want this, 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 and this. I want a fireplace and a garden tub and a walk-in closet. Well, guess what? If anybody knows the guy that I know, I got that, and my children's bus stop was right there in front of my house. I got a 2-car garage. I didn't ask for all of that. Had extra rooms when I got there. So
I love it.
I said all that to say that, our God shows up and shows out. Our thinking is to no comparison to the God that we serve, that I serve.
Right.
And so when I got settled and everything, my children were younger. The 4 that I did raise, 23-year-old, my 20-year-old son, well, he's 21 now. Baby boy, Shadon, he was 18. And then my baby girl, my Decatur baby. Yeah, she's 13. But, I got here, and I continued to work the program. And one thing that I told myself after I got pregnant with Shadon, because I want to talk about Shadon now. My other 2 children are divine. I don't want to leave y'all out. So yeah, my 23-year-old, she's awesome. She has an amazing testimony of her own. She's
Mhm.
also resilient, just like her mom. I love her so much. And my 21-year-old son, he's finding his way. He's finding his way. He's an awesome young man, hard worker. I'm proud of him for everything he does. But it was Shadon. When I got pregnant with Shadon, he was literally on my nerve. I couldn't work for 6 months because he was
Mm.
resting on a nerve on my leg, so I couldn't stand up. So this boy was literally on my nerve. And when I got pregnant with Shadon, I was actually in a shelter, in a rehab program in Savannah, Georgia, with my other 2 at that time. They were 2 and 4. Quentin and Nia were 2 and 4. And I wasn't prepared to have a child. I was about to buy a house. I had been in there for 8 months and working and doing good. And then I met my son's father and went on got off my little celibate journey jumped off the wagon for a couple of days and found out I was pregnant. And I didn't want to tell the people in the program that I was pregnant because I didn't know how they would respond. And I've never been in everyone has their body, their choice. But for me, abortion was never an option. However, at that time, I was going to do it. I didn't want another baby. His father claimed to have someone else pregnant at that time. I just wasn't ready. So I tried drinking castor. That stuff don't work. Castor oil does not work. Um, I did not want to be pregnant. I had set up an appointment to get an abortion over the weekend and had everything all set up. And the person that took me wasn't for it or against it. They were just there to support me for whatever choice I made. And
Mhm.
the night before it happened, I was always listen to the Christian radio station at night to sleep. And I woke up like 2, 3 in the morning, and Dr. Charles Stanley was talking about what God feels about abortions that morning before. But
Mm.
I walked in the clinic. It was so cold and dark in there. And I sat down, and Spirit of God told me, read the paper. So I turned the paper over because, they give you the little sign-in form, and then on the back it has all the warnings.
Okay.
And the first warning that I read was some to the effect of they use a vacuum and body parts could be left inside of you. And I threw the paper down and ran out of there. I said, I can't do this. And I ran right across the street to the Savannah Care Center. Miss Gwen, I need help. I can't do this. So I pray that they're going to put me out the program. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I went to them for help, and they helped me.
Wow.
They helped me get housing. They helped me every step of the way. And I said to myself at that time, if I ever have another baby, I want to be able to work from home for myself. I said, if my husband wants a child, when I get married, I want to be able to work from home for myself and not send my baby to school until they're 2 years old or can talk. And I was not specific about the husband. So, you hear people say God has a sense of humor. Yeah. So God showed me that I'm going to be your spiritual husband before I send you your physical husband, because you have to know how to love me and yourself before you can love anybody else. And you got some healing to do, girl. And that's what happened. I got pregnant at 43. I got pregnant at 43. And I was working at the animal hospital still. And there were so many things that were happening within that job that I had been transferred down. I mean, I was training the new receptionist, showing them the system. I never got a promotion. I never got a title change to lead receptionist, but I was doing all the work. And the Spirit of God was pushing me out of corporate America and into entrepreneurship. And it was the scariest thing that I ever did. One of the scariest I ever did. And because I've been working since I was 15,
Right.
And I knew it, but it's like I had one foot in and one foot out. And I was debating with God. I was like, okay, God, okay. It was in December of 2012. And I found out I was pregnant while I was late to work. One day, my car had messed up. I was the new supervisor was already making paper trails on me, because she was an old receptionist at the animal hospital, and she was micromanaging me and just look. I knew it was my time. I'm not even gonna blame it on her. I knew it was my time to go, and these things were happening to prepare me for that exit. But I was fighting. I was fighting tooth and nail, and got to work. They had written me up again. Then they tried to fire me. They didn't know that day that I was late, I had my car broke down and I had missed my cycle, and I had went and peed on the stick and found out I was pregnant at 43. The daddy didn't believe me. And before that, I had been volunteering, teaching a class to young ladies on the importance of abstinence and celibacy. And I was living by that for 8 months until once again decided to jump off that bandwagon and ended up pregnant with little mama. I tried to fight it. I tried to fight being fired from my job. And so I told God, imagine that. I'm going to go down here and tell these people that they discriminate. And God, I'm going to try this one last thing. Once I file this discrimination thing, if that doesn't work, then I'll know that I'm not supposed to be here. So 12, I resigned because they denied it. 12, I resigned from corporate America. And that was one of the best things that I could have done. And that next year I spent really depending on God for everything because my income was minimal, and and I was pregnant at 43. The father wasn't nowhere in the picture. Then I had my other 3 children there, and it was just day to day, bills, life in, trying to get help from my dad and other family members. And God just really showed me that you can always count on me. So through that, I said to myself, I can't continue to be this vindictive person every time a relationship doesn't work out the way that I want it to, the way that I envisioned it in my mind. I would do things to land me in jail. for failed relationships a couple of times, and that's not healthy. So I wanted to get help for myself after I had my daughter. So I did. I said, if the 12-step program can help me overcome a drug addiction for 25 years, then it could surely work if I apply it to a relationship. Um, and so that's what I did. And I began healing and working on myself. They call it shadow work, in the spiritual community. And I began looking inside of those ugly pieces of myself. I realized that abandonment, from my mother and not knowing my father caused me to cling on to men a lot and have these expectations. So whenever they would leave, then I would break down and have these friggin', just, don't leave me, these whole meltdowns and stuff. So I began to love myself more. I began to identify those character defects within myself and working on those. And I began being honest and sharing them because they said nothing in rooms. They say secrets keep you sick. So when those things that that we're ashamed of, that we don't tell people about, and not to say that you have to go and tell all your business to everybody, but there's nothing that anybody can say about me to try to attack me. You cannot
Right.
call me a crackhead. Sure was 25 years ago. You cannot call me anything because you cannot hurt me because I know who I am today. But it took a lot of work and I still work every day at it. I've been challenged lately with some things, but again, I just look at my part that I play in it. What could I have done better? Because a lot of these lessons in life be for us to either
You're
help
right.
us, let go of something or work on something within ourselves. So when I came to Atlanta, after I resigned corporate America, 12, 12, 12, I did start really working more on the organization. My old roommate in Savannah, ex-friend, I've been on her for 23 years. She was tithing a portion of her money to make sandwiches to give to people where she lived at. And I thought, wow, that's a good idea. And here's an example of staying in your lane. Now, while she was making sandwiches, homemade sandwiches, I knew I wasn't going to be making no homemade sandwiches to people. So I was like, what can I do? So I got non-perishable food items, something that the homeless or unhoused people could go into a store, something that they can eat without having a kitchen or a stove.
Right.
So, we would get them non-perishable food items and bag them up and call them love bags. And me and my children would bag them up 50 to 100 and go and give them out. Hey, I have something for you. Can I give something to you? And that's how Love Bag started.
I
Then
love that.
as we began going out there, we were doing that monthly, and I began seeing the same people month after month after month. So it came to me, provide them with some resources for the people who want additional resources while we're out there serving. Hey, what do you need? What can I help you get to the next level? So we incorporated the mentoring piece, and we helped them identify their immediate short-term and long-term goals and provide them with the resources for that week and touch bases with them, find out what the obstacles was and help them overcome those. Then a few years later, as the children got older, and school was out, and I had 4 babies in the house, 4 young little people. And I'm like, who gonna feed these children during the summer? And then it reminded me of the summer free lunch in a park. So I looked into that and incorporated the summer meals, summer fund through the USDA. We got free lunch program that I did in our subdivision for 8 years, Monday through Friday from 11 until 2 for 6 weeks. The kids could come to the clubhouse and get free lunch. We would start with affirmations. We would bring people in. We did history, Black history, and arts and crafts. And those were fun 8 years till COVID came.
Yeah.
To keep me on my healing journey and to help
Right.
me become a better woman, mother, person, I started Real Love, Real Ladies of Virtuous Essence, empowering women to walk in their purpose while healing from hurts and pains. And we study the Proverbs 31 woman, what that looks like, break it down, and also do monthly events or quarterly events. Then I got into gardening. I found my little happy place and wanted to share that with the neighborhood as well. So we started the Creative Community Cleanup, teaching the importance of neighborhood beautification and recycling, and which leads me to a new dawn. So My sons, as they got older, they began giving me a little run for my money and started hanging out in the suburbs, trying to be thugs in the burbs. And I went to so many places trying to get them help through the course, through mentoring programs and places, and there was nobody there. So my son, Shadon, actually agreed to go to Job Corps in 2023, and he did. And Shadon was supposed to go to college after Job Corps, but he asked me, he said, "Mom, can I please just come home and work and go to school?" And I said, "Well, what are you going to go to school for?" And he said, "I want to be an entrepreneur." And I'm like, "Okay,
Mhm.
boy, what kind of entrepreneur? What do you want to do?" So he was like, "I want to do my clothing brand." And I remember when my father asked me one time, what did I want to do when I grow up? And I said, "I don't know. I just want to help people." And my father
Mhm.
told me, "There's no money in helping people. You need to go for computers or nursing or something like that." And that hurt me to my heart. And I did go for computers, and I'm kind of glad I did because now that's my thing on software side. But I didn't want my son to experience what I did. And for a split second, I thought about what my dad said to me because I was about to say, "Boy, entrepreneur, clothing brand era." But I said, "Okay." And my
Mhm.
son started his clothing brand, Gross Apparel, Get Rich or Spectate.
Mm.
And my baby came home and he worked. He got him a job. He got in Gwinnett Tech. He was going to school at 16. He got his high school diploma. He was in college at 16 for business marketing. And he got a job at Whataburger here in Beaufort, Georgia. And my son went to work every day. They could count on him. He was young. He was 16. Then he turned 17 and he got fired for taking too many breaks and stuff, but they hired him back within a week. I asked him first though. I said, "Do you want your job back?" And he said, "Yeah, for now, but then I'm going to look for something different." So I said, "Well, I'll go up there with you. You could talk to the people, but I can't guarantee anything." So I did that for my son. And they hired him back within a week of firing him, only for him to, on March 19th, Wednesday, March 19th, there had been a faulty grill handle at the Whataburger there that management knew about, and he was instructed to clean that grill and he had to pull the handle to clean it, and the handle broke off, and he fell back and hit his head on a metal table.
Mm.
In the video, you can see management going to change the paper towel holders, look at the grill handle, everything but tend to my son. My son's just standing there. And they asked him, "Was he okay?" He said, "No, my head and my shoulder hurt." And he was like, they asked him, "Do you want to go?" I think they said they might have asked him, did he want to go to the hospital? And he said, "No." Well, I know I never even want to go to the hospital. Heck. And so they told him to go ahead and go home and get some rest for a few days. It wasn't documented. I wasn't notified as his emergency contact. He had just turned 18, February 5th, 2025. And this happened Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. My son came home. I didn't know about it. That was a Wednesday night. He went up and went to school the next morning. On that Thursday morning, in his phone, once everything was said and done, looking through his phone, he had been texting people that his head was on 10, how he felt, and people were laughing, but he was out of it for a minute. They talking about, "I can't sue." So there's all kind of conversations going on that were not beneficial for a young employee who sustained a workplace injury. And that Friday, he hadn't, because, I do require a household contribution, a monthly household contribution for anybody who stays here. It's only $200 a month, but, that's his way of contributing. And I was inquiring about that because he hadn't given it. But I was holding this money for him to save his money because he wanted to buy a car. So we had about almost $5,000 saved up I've been holding for him. And he came and asked me for all of his money, said he was moving out. And, "Where you going?" "He don't have
Mhm.
nowhere to go." And he said he'll figure it out. And
Mm.
I'm just like, boy, it don't make no sense. So I was trying to figure it out. I went in his room. He was standing in the closet and tears was just coming down his face. And I was like, "What's wrong?" And he looked at me and he said, "I don't know." And I didn't know that I don't know was
Uh-huh.
because my baby was really messed up,
Yeah.
and I asked him, I said, well, what is it, a girl? He's a teenager. He was like, no. So, this day and age, I said, well, what is it, a boy?
Mhm.
And he laughed a little bit. So I kind of just brushed it off. But he was so adamant about leaving. And Shadon, he was quiet around me until he wasn't.
Mhm.
So he wasn't really one to be very vocal. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So I asked him again, do you got a sugar mama or something? A sugar daddy somewhere? Because it didn't make sense. He didn't have anywhere to go. And he was like, no, no, and he'll just figure it out. So first I got a little mad. Well, if you leave, you can't come back, and you can't come back and get this, and you got to take all your stuff and your TV. And he's like, Ma, I don't need all of that. So then I calmed down, because then I started getting concerned, and I wanted my son to know that I love him. And one of the
Right.
things that I can say that I'm proud of as being a mother, and that something that I would recommend for every parent, no, I'm not gonna say that, but it worked for me. I was very transparent with each one of my children, and I held myself accountable for every ill thing that I did to my children, each one of them one by one. I sat them down and I explained to them where I was at when I was pregnant with them and when I had them, and why I was not able to raise them, why I was not able to love them, the ones that I did have that suffered at the hands of the last few years of my addiction, because it was bad.
Mhm.
It was bad. My children, my daughter set the kitchen on fire because I was high and sleeping and couldn't get up. And once I put the fire out, I went back and got high again. They was about to take my children, but thank God I was on the way to rehab when they did it, when they came for me. But I chose to talk to each one of my children and hold myself accountable for, and named. I didn't just say, I'm sorry for hurting you. I named
Mhm.
some of the specific things that I could remember doing or saying to them that was not right, because I didn't know how to love them. I was raised by the streets. Old school Southern families, you get a whipping, you go get a switch, you pick your switch off the tree. If it ain't big enough, we tie that one with everyone that you bring in. You get hit with a shoe, a belt buckle, anything. So that's the type of, parenting skills. That's where I got. So I didn't know how to really be a mother, even though I did. They went on vacations. They didn't, they had their necessities, but I hurt my children, and I held myself accountable for that. And I had conversations with them. And a few months before Shadon passed, after he came home, I had sat down and had a talk with him. We cried, and I left the door
Mhm.
open. I said, if there's ever a time where you have questions about, well, why did my mama do this? Or why didn't she do that? I'm mad at her for this. Pick up the phone and call me. I don't have nothing to say. I will listen. I will take that. If that's what it takes for
Right.
you to heal my child, then you do that. See, because to this day, and I love my mother, but to this day, she's still with that man. She's still with that character. And she has not one time told me why she left. I'll never get that answer, but guess what? It's okay. I forgive her. I love her. That's my mother. And I'm grateful for her, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
I released her, and it's my duty now to make sure that I break those generational curses the best I can. So I've been very transparent with my children. So when Shadon chose to leave, whether it was in his right mind or not, I wanted to make sure that the love was still there, that he still felt loved, that he felt welcome back home, because I didn't understand what he was going through. He left that Friday. He hugged me. I gave him his money. He said, I love you. And he left. And my other son, they had checked, apparently I got a hotel downtown at the Hyatt. My other son said he used to love the high rises. So he was up on the 20-something floor, and he told his brother he was coming home. My sister was coming in for the weekend because it was her birthday weekend. And we were expecting him to come back home. He told his brother, don't pick up my shifts, because they both worked at Whataburger. Well, my
Uh-huh.
son called me that Saturday night and said, Mama, Shadon hit his head at work. And I immediately knew what was wrong with my son. But he answered the phone. And I text him and I say, Shadon, you need to call me because I need to take you to the doctor. And I didn't bother him no more that Sunday. And I'll never forget because that Sunday night I was sitting in my bed. It was about 11 o'clock at night and my nose started bleeding. And then my phone rang and I didn't answer it because I didn't recognize the number. My phone dry as a bone. Who is this calling me at 11 at night? No, sir, no, ma'am. And then they called back again and they asked me, was I the mother of Shadon? And they found him with a gunshot wound to his head at the high end. That was on the Sunday. We all got in the car and went down there driving around. Of course, everything was closed on the Sunday night in Atlanta. But I went and, family was there. I never thought this would be me. I never thought that this would be a part of my journey. But like everything else in it, I couldn't allow it to take me out. I couldn't. So I started journaling. And the most journaling came after everybody left. A few weeks after we did a celebration of life, I started writing down some of the things that I could use. And I started keeping track of the resources that were helping me, the grief groups, the Forever Missed. Everything that's on our webpage is what's helped me through my journey. And with Sha'don's law, because of the way Georgia's laws is set up, the workman's comp protects the employer and it's up to the employee to get help, but they didn't provide any information. They gave my son an option to, go to the hospital. So that's what Sha'don's law is. Sha'don law is that fine hair to make sure that employers are held accountable for any head or suspected head injuries, workplace injuries that they documented within 24 hours. Emergency contact notified immediately, no matter what the person's age. And for some type of EMT evaluation, if not that, then at least the person being sent home with a list of doctors. Whatever that workman's comp info is that they got up on the wall, the doctor list, have a packet to give to your injured employee, because none of that stuff was done for my son. And that's what Sha'don's law is. So we'll be working with legislators throughout the summer to get that perfected and introduced for the 2027 year. Also, as I stated, my organization Desire to Inspire Community Outreach, that's my baby. And there was so many times that I started and stopped, as far as volunteers, people have helped along the way. We remain consistent with our holiday youth event. We've done that for 10 years, giving free toys to families in need and extended stay hotels. But now I am solidifying the foundation because I cannot do this by myself anymore. I definitely need a team because of the magnitude of the vision for a new dawn, which I can't go into now, but it's great. It's very divine, and it is going to be a great place for parents or families who've experienced child loss. So now we're just getting the foundation set so that we can make a greater impact with solid core members, because we all have an expiration date, and I want to make sure that my purpose is fully fulfilled. We honor Shadon. We honor everything about him. We honor our sadness, our madness, our anger, our joy. When we talk about him, we remember him. We see him in beauty and nature, in songs. We laugh, we cry, and we remember him. One thing we don't do, or we quickly change our mindset when it comes to those what ifs.
Right.
Things outside of our control. You cannot, when you do that, why did or what if, or, those things keep you in a state of, like in a lower nature, and you're not able to heal. What I found that helps me is just understanding that this journey that we're on, it is for a purpose.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey, Olivia. It is truly one of resilience and you just holding on to faith. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your son, Shadon. And you have been doing so much great work in the community and continue to push forward with the Shadon's law. And Just thank you for your honesty, for your vulnerability, and just for trusting this space with your story.
Thank you for having me. I got to get this book out. These books. It's so many chapters.
Yes, I can definitely see that's next for you is
Yes.
a book of your story and your journey.
Yes.
But before we close out, I want you to share with our listeners where they can connect with you and all of the great work that you're doing in the community.
Yes. So our organization is Desire to Inspire Community Outreach. It was formerly Ministries. We can be found. Our website is Desire, the number 2, Inspire.org. Desire, the number 2, Inspire.org. And the Bereavement Resource Network, A New Dawn, is on the site as well. But we're also on social media, Instagram and TikTok, A New Dawn _25. And you can also find Desire to Inspire All, same with the number 2, Desire, the number 2, Inspire All on Instagram.
All right. Well, if you want to connect with Olivia, all of her information will be listed in the show notes. The information shared in this episode is not intended to serve as medical, mental health, or professional advice. The views and experiences shared by our guests are their own and should not be considered a substitute for professional care. If you are struggling with your mental health, please consider reaching out to a licensed mental health professional or your healthcare provider. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis or believe you may harm yourself or others, call 911 or the Suicide or Crisis Hotline at 988. If this episode resonated with you, do me a favor, share it. Send it to a friend, a family member, somebody in your circle who needs to hear that healing and purpose are still possible for them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode because trust me, we have more incredible guests and conversations coming your way. And if you haven't already, like and leave us a review. It helps more women find this show and join this community. And until next time, keep highlighting your healing.